If you are not growing, you are dying. And so does that mean that Fort Collins, Colorado is dying? Well, between 2020 and 2023, Fort Collins only grew by 0.3%, a population of now nearly 170,000 people, just over. But historically, we've averaged anywhere between 1 to 1.5% population growth per year, really over the last 100 plus years that Fort Collins has been around, 150 years. So what does that mean? So this video is going to jump into that and look at just that. Why it's happening, what's happening now, what does the future hold, and what do I think about Fort Collins and its population moving forward? What's up, everybody? My name is Patrick Sukup. This is the Living in Fort Collins YouTube channel, where you come to learn everything there is to know about Northern Colorado and Fort Collins: eating, sleeping, playing, population growth, or flatlining population. Now, if you're considering relocating to the area, buying, selling, or investing, give us a call, text, or email. We are licensed real estate agents in the state of Colorado and would love to be an asset for you if that is a consideration. Now, without any further delay, let's jump into today's video. Fort Collins population has flatlined. Now, we better get going if our population estimates are to be exceeded or met. We're expected to grow to nearly 250,000 people within our growth management area, our GMA. Now, Fort Collins is really a part of this bigger area of Northern Colorado, which is comprised of Loveland of 90,000 people, Greeley over 100,000 people, and then Windsor, Timnath, Johnstown. But really, our Northern Colorado area is nearly 750,000 people and expected to get to over 1 million people over the next 20 or so years by 2050. And so you see places like Costco relocating to Timnath, Colorado, or Bass Pro Shops relocating to Loveland, Colorado. And Fort Collins continues to get great big companies that remain and keep here, put their world headquarters here, like Woodward Governor. But it's really a combination of value of Northern Colorado. But if we're gonna reach that 250,000 people, what's happening right now with this kind of population flatlining? Well, what is happening is the surrounding areas are growing astronomically. Specifically, Windsor, Colorado is the fastest growing large municipality in all of Colorado. Just in 2013, it was nearly 15,000 people. And now it's closer to 42,000 people, with expectations of it growing to 61,000 people on the low side by 2041, and maybe even upwards of higher than 80,000 people. And then places like Timnath, Colorado, that was nearly 200 people in the early 2000s, and now is at 10,000 people. Or Johnstown, Severance, Berthoud, Loveland, you name it, the surrounding areas of Fort Collins has seen dramatic growth. Severance, Colorado. So what's happening is Northern Colorado and along the Front Range is still growing at a really strong rate, but we're not seeing a lot of new construction and new developments that's either happening at a rate that allows for rapid growth and population like Windsor is, or Timnath, or Berthoud, where pretty much anywhere you look, there is a new development. There's only about 25% of the land within Fort Collins for infill opportunity, meaning 75% of our area has been built out. And so not a lot of new construction. So their only opportunity is redevelopment, moving up, adding density, or this new development that has to take place on the infill, which our planning, zoning, our process, our entitlements, all that good stuff is an extended period comparatively to Timnath, Colorado. I talked with my uncle on Fort Collins Fellas. He was a guest and he was the mayor of Timnath for 4 years. And it was a great question of, Uncle Mark, if I asked you today to, if I wanted to build a house, how long would it take for me to submit my plans to then put a shovel in the dirt and get going? And he said about a year. Fort Collins is anywhere between 3 to 4 years from initial submittal of your conceptual review to putting a shovel in the dirt and seeing that project go vertical. So there are some complexities in the Northern Colorado or Fort Collins development landscape that there are projects happening. Mosaic, Hanson Farm, the Reserve at Timberline, Saunders, and Bloom is just taking shape as well. So there are some developments, but for our population of 180,000 people and the growth of 1.5% to maintain, which is essentially a simple calculation. Births minus deaths plus net migration in minus net migration out gives us our population growth or decline. And that's where ultimately, if we don't have the houses that people need to and want to move into, they're gonna find surrounding areas. And affordability could also play a part into that. Windsor, Loveland, definitely Johnstown, Severance for sure. You could see anywhere between a 10% discount for Windsor and Loveland to maybe even a 15 to 20% discount if you go to Johnstown or Severance as well. So affordability can play into that as well. But the why of why Fort Collins population has kind of slowed to a very small creep is not a lot of new development. So not a lot of new homes for people to even move into if they want. And the surrounding area has seen dramatic increases. In fact, let's look at some of the actual percentages. Windsor grew by 23.3% over that time period, from 32,700 in 2020 to 40,300 as July 2023, but actually they're closer to 42,000 now. And then other communities, Timnath 54% over the last 3 years to 9,991, Severance 41%, Berthoud 28%, Wellington 0.9%, and Estes Park actually declined. So the why is we're just seeing surrounding areas grow pretty dramatic. So what does it mean for Fort Collins right now? Like I said, if you're not growing, you're dying. There are people that are seeing increased rental rates for their commercial buildings. And if our population isn't increasing for them to have more people coming into their stores, economy is extremely important. And so I think really what is happening right now is just a slight pause while people are infilling the surrounding areas, while those home prices increase, kind of not necessarily maybe to the level of Fort Collins, but it's actually, I think, a really good thing, because a big issue for people from born and raised in Fort Collins or been around Fort Collins for 10, 20, 30 years is their concern for traffic. Well, over the last 3 years, our population has remained relatively flat, while projects of winding roads like at Trilby and College Avenue are being widened, and as well as Timberline south of Harmony. So we're actually able to start to build some infrastructure to maybe catch up. I-25, which is a huge economic artery between here and Denver, finally got their 3 lanes open between here and Berthoud, and then they're gonna be completing the next and final phase to have 3 lanes between here and Denver over the next 5 years. So it's actually been a really good thing as far as infrastructure goes for Fort Collins. Now, Windsor, don't even get me started about the traffic in Windsor. Timnath, Johnstown, we definitely are seeing an increase in traffic. Our Northern Colorado, the population expectations over the next 20, 30 years is, again, not slowing down. The state demographers, you can see the population expectations on kind of the outer skirts, kind of the eastern plains, western slope, but along the Front Range, it's really expected to remain strong moving now and into the future. But as for Fort Collins, what does it mean? It means that right now we have a little bit of a breath, while maybe some projects like Bloom and Montava, Saunders East, and others really begin to take shape, take form, and those infrastructure projects get to take place and hopefully be a better product when complete. But I will say, Fort Collins, the city government really needs to look hard on, do we want to have a no growth like Boulder, where they've been between 95,000 and 105,000 people for the last 20 plus years, and prices have gone to $5, $10, $15 million for homes? Those are questions that have to be asked. And is it going to be a have and have nots? Because there's still going to be people who see Fort Collins as a place, a destination to move and to enjoy, where others might feel that it's time to move away. It's not the same place, or it's getting too expensive. I don't want to move here. So there's a lot of conversations that have to be had, and kind of city government has got a lot of challenges on their plate of where do we move and how and what direction. Now, what does the future hold for Fort Collins? Montava itself is going to add 30,000 people to the northeast side of Fort Collins. Take that in conjunction with Country Club Reserve, Saunders East. You've got other projects popping up like Bloom. You're gonna have some projects on the northeast corner of I-25 and Mulberry, as well as I-25 and Prospect Road. That alone is gonna get us to 210,000 people with Montava. Then you got Bloom with another 2,000. You got Strauss Lakes. You've got developments that are going to be filled up. And then you're gonna have densification in that Old Town corridor where they don't go just, sprawl, they go vertical. As really a big push for the city of Fort Collins government is they want density, they want less cars on the road, they want public transportation, they want people to walk, ride, and be able to do that all within a 15-minute city community, or 15-minute cities. So the future of Fort Collins is still gonna be built out to its GMA. I project, yes, we're still gonna meet that 250,000 people. Don't know exactly when that's gonna happen, but when projects like Montava, Bloom, Saunders, Strauss Lake, among all the projects that are happening on the East Harmony Corridor, it will happen. It might just happen a little bit slower. And in the meantime, hopefully our infrastructure can catch up, keep up, and allow for some offloading of traffic congestions. Well, what do I think? I mean, Fort Collins, it was just ranked as the 39th best place to live in the United States. We've been all the way up to number 1. We've been in the top 20, top 10, top 15s. We've been lower than this as far as places to live, in the 50s. And, I think that Fort Collins will never necessarily be a Boulder, where they attract the Twitters, the Googles, and have, a massive headquarters. But I do think we're seeing other big companies, Budweiser, Woodward Governor, UC Health, Otterbox, among others, BillGO, as far as a tech startup that's got $1 billion valuation, that are taking foot and hold in Fort Collins and keeping in its kind of stranglehold on such a great community. And then we've got our OGs, Broadcom, Intel, Agilent Technologies, that are maintaining their headquarters here in Fort Collins and will grow. So I see Fort Collins as a place where it's going to attract a lifestyle-centric person that chooses to be here, and that's gonna continue to be the case because Fort Collins is wonderful, and we are reinvesting. Our city sales tax versus Windsor and Timnath. Timnath is at 3%, Windsor 3.65%, and we just added a half-cent sales tax from 3.85 to 4.35% for the city of Fort Collins to help with public transportation, our climate, and then 50% of that tax hike went to parks and recreation. So our huge focus is lifestyle design in Fort Collins, and people are still going to want to move here, but there are going to be also people who want to move out. So unless we have some type of unicorn that just helps, our jobs, I still think jobs are gonna be extremely important. We need these companies, we need high paying jobs, but with the ability to remote work, we've got people working for startups that are based out of Chicago, big Fortune 500 companies, big tech companies, that they're able to remote work, but still live in Fort Collins. So my guess is that Fort Collins is still going to be an extremely desirable place to live, but there might be some growth on our exterior areas because of affordability, because of lots of different things. The inventory of new construction just isn't there yet, but it will come. It will just take time. So maybe we don't necessarily meet our population expectations by the date that it's expected to happen, but I think ultimately, slowly, it does happen because we don't have a no growth policy like Boulder does. I will say that there are a lot of individuals in Fort Collins and Northern Colorado that would prefer Fort Collins' population to just stop. But I don't think that's going to be the case. Our GMA is there. Annexation of Mulberry and I-25 is happening. Mulberry annexation of Northeast Fort Collins will continue to happen. It's part of the plan. It's part of the City Fort Collins growth management, and hopefully we can do it in a smart, intelligent way. But for right now, Fort Collins' population is flatlined. Take a deep breath, hopefully catch up on some infrastructure building, and move on from there with a good plan in place to allow for structured growth. Now, until next time, guys, hopefully this video is helpful for you. And if you have any questions, give us a call, text, or email, or comment below what you think Fort Collins population is going to look like in the next 10, 15 years. All right, take care.